Yeah, you ready?
Yeah.
All right, here we go.
This is the Always More podcast.
Hello and hello. It is May 12th, and welcome to the Always More podcast, where we believe there is always more room at the table for honest questions, meaningful conversations, and deeper understanding. Today on the pod, we are talking about our reviews and recommendations of the week, overdue library books, Texas, because, why not? Barehanded bear fights, and so much more. But first, before we move on, I want to introduce my best friend in the whole entire world, Christopher Thomas Ford. How you doing, my brother?
I was doing all right. I just realized in the notes, I misspelled bear one of the times.
Oh, because it was a different...
It should have been, the first one should have been B-A-R-E, and the second one is B-E-A-R. But
I got what you were doing there,
bear.
though. I mean, it just sounds the same.
That's just going to drive me insane.
No one would have known.
But I know.
No one's going to know. What's that TikTok?
Who's going to know? How will they know?
How will they know? You doing all right, man?
I'm doing all right. I'm doing pretty good.
Cool, man.
It's been an interesting couple of weeks since the last time we recorded. So
Yeah.
I'm doing all right.
Guys, we got an episode for y'all today. It's gonna be an episode. It's gonna be an episode.
I'm gonna have fun with it.
We're gonna have fun with it. We got some fun stuff we want to talk about and some deeper stuff. But guys, as always, we love to have the conversation, to be open, to be understanding, and to possibly learn something here and there. Right?
There you go.
Yeah, we always like to learn.
We like to learn along the way.
We do. We do. All right, guys. Well, hey, let's just dive right on into it. Let's start into our first segment, N Rev, which is our reviews and recommendations of the week. Chris, what do you have for us?
All right, so this is a show that I've watched a few times on Netflix. It's The Last Kingdom.
Dude, I love that show.
It follows Uhtred Ragnarsson.
Uhtred, son of Uhtred?
Uhtred, son of Uhtred, who is also Uhtred, son of Ragnar.
Yeah.
Who is also Uhtred of Bebbanburg. Who is also Uhtred the Godless.
Yeah.
Basically, he is a Dane in like the formative years of England before it was even England.
700s, right? 8th century, around there?
I don't know, truthfully. I just watch it for the violence.
Watch it for the violence.
But it follows this Dane as he is trying to conquer his homeland back because he's not truly a Dane. He was actually born a Saxon.
Right.
And then adopted by Danes after the Danes killed his father.
I thought it was another rival Saxon group.
No, it was the Danes.
Oh, okay.
And then the Saxons tried to buy him back, but the Danes wouldn't sell him. It was this weird thing.
All right.
Anyways, he grows up as a Dane.
Yeah.
And then the story follows his life as he goes to and fro trying to get his land back, helping the king of England basically build England. He gains power, loses power, all kinds of crazy stuff happens to him. Gets married, gets divorced, his wife dies, all kinds of crazy stuff. It is a really good show. It's like 5 seasons, I think.
Something like that, 4 or 5.
4 or 5 seasons. And if I'm not mistaken, your fish was named after the main character of this show.
Uhtred, son of Uhtred.
R.I.P. R.I.P. Uhtred.
So, for you guys who don't know, which it's probably most of y'all, we had a pet fish for a long time.
It would not die.
He survived like 3 other fish and did really good. But then the other day, my son knocked down the fish bowl, and it made a huge mess in the living room. And anyways, long story short, Jessica thought we saved him because she put him out into the new water. But of course, fish are finicky when it comes to new environments. And
he held on though for a minute.
He did. He survived like the afternoon and the evening, I think. And then later that day, we found out, oh nope, he did. And then we had fish steak, and it was delicious. I'm just kidding.
It's not big enough for a steak.
It was not.
Barely big enough for a single bite.
So anyways, so Uhtred, son of Uhtred, he is gone. But yeah, it's a good show though. It's one of those shows that you could just like binge. And it's easy to watch.
It absolutely is. It follows in that same vein as like Game of Thrones, but it doesn't have like the dragons. It's just that historical fiction.
I mean, obviously, like they change it up and they make it more dramatized, but it's actually based on a real guy and real events. They just mix around the times and the events and the characters around a little bit.
Yeah.
So to make it more, appealing to the audience.
And they make reference to that too. Like Alfred says, the story is going to be what I write down.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, that's a good point.
That's another cool thing about it. Yeah. Dives into that historical fiction. Another one that I really like.
Another one
is, we talked about zombies last time.
Yeah.
this is another one of my new favorites.
Tell me
I
about
saw it on HBO. The Dead Don't Die.
The Dead Don't Die.
With
What is this?
Bill Murray and Adam
yeah.
Driver. So
Is it good?
It's
okay, because the reason why I'm asked, because I haven't seen it yet, but I looked at the reviews and it looks like it's trash. And so I'm like, I don't know if I want
it's
to.
not trash. You like Adam Driver, so
Yes.
you would love this movie. Truthfully,
Okay.
it's a pretty funny movie. It's like dry comedy.
Okay, I might dig that.
There's all kinds of like fourth wall breaking lines and things like that. It basically just follows these two cops in a small town where, due to like aliens or the equator, it never really is explained. Like the Earth stops spinning at one point. They never really explain what happens exactly because it's a small town. They don't really know what happens.
Right.
So you're looking at it from their perspective, but they have to survive this zombie apocalypse. And spoiler alert, if you don't want to hear this, skip ahead 10 seconds. Everyone dies.
Nice.
But, you know, it's a really fun movie, I think.
Oh.
I wouldn't say it's a great movie, but it's worth an afternoon.
It's worth an afternoon. All right, I might check it out on my never-ending list of movies.
You can put this one in the middle of the list.
In the middle of the
It
list?
doesn't have to go on top.
All right, so for mine, Chris, last week you shook things up a little bit by not doing a TV or movie or anything, but you did an album. And this week I'm going to do the same. This album is called Departures by one of my favorite artists of all time, John Foreman. Look, he's one of those guys to where you really like him or you really don't. I don't know why it's that way, but that's how I've always, every time I brought the name up, people are like, who? Or they're like, oh, yeah, I love John Foreman. It's one or the other. And so, anyways, his recent album came out, and I really, really love it. He's got some songs on there that just kind of show his own, I don't know if deconstruction is the right word, but he really kind of goes through his own questions of God and mortality and different things like that. And so it's a really great album, really good stuff. Highly recommend it.
Yeah, and for those of you that don't know, John Foreman is the frontman for Switchfoot, which is Tim's favorite band of all time.
Yeah.
We've actually met this gentleman a couple of times in person. We got backstage passes to go hang out with Switchfoot after one of the concerts in Waco. It was a great time.
It was a good time.
He's a really cool dude, and I'm all about it.
He's one of those guys, and like you said, we met him a couple of times, and I think met his brother Tim. And just the whole group of people, it's like they're one of those bands that are not that popular anymore, but they're just good people. Like you can just tell, and just how they talk about things, they're just good people.
Like they're celebrities that you want to meet to just hang out with, not to like, oh, I love hanging out. I love going to parties and all this stuff. Like you would just go to their house for dinner.
Right. Yeah.
They feel like they're that kind of people.
Yep. Good guy, good band, good music. That's all I got, man. That was a quick Wreck and Rev.
Yeah. Moving on to the next one. What did I miss?
Yes. Every time.
All right. So let me jump into mine first.
Please do.
This one blew my mind. There was a library book returned recently to a high school in Britain. The book was ironically called Manners Make a Difference. It was returned late by mail. A student had to mail this in 32 years after they borrowed the book. 32 years.
Why would you even think about doing that after that much amount of time?
I believe the article quotes the gentleman saying, call it British guilt. Or was it? No, Catholic guilt. Sorry, it was Catholic guilt. What does that even mean? Sorry. He said, sorry, just 32 years overdue. Call it Catholic guilt. So basically this book, Manners Make a Difference, was borrowed from St. John Fisher Catholic High School in Peterborough, England. It was like 32 years ago. Some random student borrowed the book. The school officials actually calculated the late fees accrued on this book.
Oh my gosh.
Now, you go to a library, you borrow a book, it's like 10 cents a week if you're late, right?
Right.
It's not a whole lot.
But don't they stop it after a while because it's like you've already paid for the book or whatever?
Yeah, they just stop caring after a while.
Right.
Eventually, like, I think I still have library books from libraries that I went to when I was like a little kid.
Yeah.
I don't think they're ever going to find me and charge me. But if they were to care about this fine, it would have been $1,163 in late fees.
Oh, my Lord.
For a book about manners. They said it's now considered outdated. They will not return it to circulation, but they're going to put it on display in the school's study center just because it's cool. It's a cool story. So I thought that was fun.
That's a fun one.
That's a nice little little jab.
There are, and if you guys know my wife, you will know that she loves books. And if you go through her library, every once in a while, you'll find a library book. Now, I don't know if she's paid for all of them or not, but
almost certainly not.
I'm telling you, there might be someone out there who has her name still. And
I know of at least 2 libraries that your wife has interacted with that have shut down. So I'm not blaming her for that, but maybe her late fees could have kept them open.
Maybe that dollar, whatever.
Love you, Jess.
All right, guys. So for mine, long story short, I was on TikTok, and the reason why I say this is because when I talked to you about this, you're like, only white people would do this. And
100%.
And this is it. So if you guys don't know, there's this thing called support animals, and they're exactly that. They're there to support you emotionally, mentally, all those kind of things. So,
different from service animals.
Correct.
Support animals are just there to help.
Yeah.
Service animals perform a job.
Right. Yeah. Support animals, they're more gentle. They're a little bit more. They're meant to be pet. They're meant to be enjoyed, but they're there for you emotionally and mentally. Whereas service animals, they're meant to actually potentially save your life. That's exactly what they're meant to do. So I found one. I found a support animal, and Chris, you already know this, but guys, just think about the most wildest animal you can think of, okay? Just take a quick second, close your eyes unless you're driving, and just think about, what kind of animal the craziest animal that you can think of that a person would want as a support animal, right? Because you think about, you usually want soft, cuddly things with fur and whatever. That's a normal thing, right?
Yes.
This guy, and if I'm not mistaken, he's from Florida, so that's probably a good...
I feel like all of your stories are like Florida man, Florida woman, Florida, whatever. They all happen there.
Okay, guys, I'm going to put this in the video or in the show notes. I'm going to need you to watch it. I was wrong. He's not from Florida. He's from Pennsylvania.
But you definitely heard that right. It is a support gator.
Support gator.
Not even an alligator. A gator.
A gator.
Support gator.
This guy's been having this emotional, and if you watch the video, the alligator does look super chill.
He looks chill. He's not bothering nobody. Not doing nothing wrong.
Later in the video, he says he's never been violent towards anything. So I'm wondering how this gator is even alive. Have you eaten and stuff? But yeah. So anyways,
captivity.
Oh,
raised in captivity.
Oh, yeah.
So there you go.
So Wally, the support.
That is definitely some white
gator.
people stuff. Sorry, not sorry.
Sorry, not sorry. Okay, guys, that's all we have for What Did I Miss? I can't do it as well. Chris, you got to do it.
What did I miss?
There we go. Sorry, I don't know why I did that. That was really off of me. All right, guys, that's all we have for the first part of this pod. Next up, we are going to talk about the topic of topics right now, and that is weapons.
Guns.
All right, guys, we'll be right back. All right, guys, we are back, ready to go into this topic. Guys, today we're talking about guns. I mean, there's just kind of no fishing around it. No fishing around it? What am I saying? There's
beating around the bush?
Beating around the bush. Fishing around it. I was thinking of Uhtred. Poor Uhtred.
That poor fish.
Poor fish.
A gun would have done him well.
Guys, obviously, if you're listening to this episode, you're listening because this is a hot topic conversation.
Or you just really like us.
That too. I hope it's both. Well, I don't know what I'm saying, I guess. This is going to be a topic that we both have opinions about, that we both have thoughts about, but we wanted to kind of start off with a disclaimer and honesty, because a lot of what we're going to talk about, we're going to reference different viewpoints from different sides that we sometimes agree with and sometimes we don't agree with. Like most issues, I try my best to not make things black or white, because honestly, most issues, especially heavy ones, they're not black and white. There's not that many issues out there that I believe are truly, you have to believe it 1,000% this way or the other way. Most of the time, when it comes to just the average person, we have a complex view on things that aren't necessarily fit into one mold or the other. And so this is one of those issues, especially for me, and I'm sure Chris it is for a little bit too, where it's not one way or the other. And I say that because a lot of the stats and a lot of the things that we're going to share today might seem like we are just on one side. And I'm going to do my best to reference different articles and different viewpoints, and I'll kind of explain later why, but we're not coming from one side or the other on this. In fact, we try our best, I think, just as individuals, to try not to side with one group or the other. There's things that we definitely side with in those groups, but that's not the reason why we side with these certain topics. So
I'm a little more comfortable siding with one group over the other than I think you are.
true.
But I've always been that way. So
Well, I guess where I'm coming from is I was, and you can fill in the blanks on your own here, people listening, but because I was entrenched in one side for the longest time, I don't want to just completely swing to the other side of the pendulum,
alienate everybody else around you.
Right. And I don't want to. I don't want to listen to just one side. That's my point. And so, when it comes to guns, I actually, if you were to ask me, like, Harry, where do you view it? On paper, I would probably side with libertarians most about this topic, as far as just the general fundamental, we should have a right to have a weapon. That's kind of where, like, fundamentally, of course, this is complicated. It's not as simple as that.
Oh, yeah.
But that's where, on paper, if everything was fine and door and there wasn't any mass killings, that's where I would be with. And just for clarity's sake, I do have weapons. I have 2 guns and a few other things around the house, and that's where I'm at. I've had these guns for a while, though, and I still, every once in a while, have fun with them and go out shooting at a range. But yeah, so I'm just letting you guys know that's kind of where I'm at right now.
Fair enough. Well, I think we're pretty close on that same page. Now, I'm definitely more left-leaning than you are on this topic and a few other topics, I think. Not that one way or the other,
Yeah.
I also have guns myself, a few of them. I keep them in their places in the house.
Right.
I also have other weapons located throughout the house just in case. I believe that weapons should be available to qualified people.
Yeah.
I believe in background checks. I believe in common sense gun laws. I believe that not everyone should be allowed to have a weapon.
I agree.
But we'll get into it. We'll get into it.
So we just want to at least let you guys know. So that way, if you start hearing like these certain stats or whatever, you're like, oh, they're only saying this or they're only saying that.
No,
like, guys,
these are statistics.
They don't have opinions.
Facts don't care about your feelings. How about that?
And that's just the honest truth about it. And so we're going to go through some of these stats, and we'll take a break every once in a while. But I want to share some stats with you that are at least in the back of our brains as to why we're talking about this issue and why it's important to us. And again, we're both also, like I said, we both have weapons, but we're also dads. And that actually has a huge impact as to our opinions about weapons and guns in general. And so let's get into it. So here's the first stat I'll go into. In 2019, there were 14,400 gun-related homicides.
Jeez.
Here's an international comparison of gun-related killings as a percentage of all homicides, okay? This is just different nations, and these are, what's the word? Not third world country, but they're modern.
First world
countries. England and Wales, 4%. So that's the percentage of the homicides with guns.
4% of all murders were done with a gun.
Yeah. Australia, 22. Canada, 39. U.S., 73.
That is staggering.
In other words, nearly 3/4 of homicides in the U.S. involved guns.
Jeez.
That's a big number.
Especially considering 14,000 is only 73%. Like, that is a lot of people being murdered.
Yeah. So here's another way to look at it. In 2012, homicide by firearm per 1 million people. So this is in advanced countries again. It's a homicide by firearm per 1 million people.
So for every 1 million people.
Yeah. In Australia, it's 1.4. New Zealand, 1.6. I'm going to keep going like this. Germany, 1.9. Austria, 2.2. Denmark, 2.7. Netherlands, 3.3. I did that wrong. Finland, 4.5. Ireland, 4.8. Canada, 5.1. Luxembourg, 6.2. Belgium, 6.8. Switzerland, 7.7. United States, 29.7. Switzerland was the next closest. 7.7 versus 29.7.
Jeez.
Chris, go into this next stat for me.
Yeah, so the top 10 civilian gun-owning countries. So these are countries where it's not just military, not just the police force. These are like your everyday random citizens.
Yeah.
Firearms per 100 residents. So that's how many people have a weapon or how many weapons there are per 100 people.
Yeah, how many firearms?
So Iceland has 31.7 guns to every 100 person. Lebanon, 31.9. Finland, 32.4. Cyprus, 34. Canada, 34.7. Uruguay, 34.7. Montenegro and Serbia, 39.1. Yemen, 52.8. U.S., 120.5. That means there are more guns than people in the U.S.
Yeah.
Which is a well-known fact throughout the rest of the world.
Yes.
They all know that.
And I wanted to clarify here because a lot of people kind of think about like, oh, well, we've always had this. Back in 1986, it was 0.8. We have increasingly, over the past 40 years, added so many more firearms into our nation. And it's come from us.
Yeah.
We
are the gun manufacturers.
Yeah. So the reason why I wanted these stats, at least just to start off, and I got more stats in a second, is to at least paint a picture of just where we're at as a nation. We are definitely set apart from other nations around the world.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you can go into the third world countries, and that's a different story. But as modern, industrialized, first world nations, we are set apart. We have more weapons by far than any other country behind us.
Yeah.
And so we are definitely, I don't know where to say with that. I just want to at least that be in your head. Like this is not like just, other countries have this problem. No, if any modern countries do not have this amount of guns in their community. So here's some gun-related death breakdowns. In 2019, there were 38,355 total deaths involving guns. 1,352 were accidental and war casualties. Pause just for a second. This is counting war casualties. So people who have died in war. This is 2019, 1,352. 14,414 were homicides, like we mentioned before. And then 23,941 are suicides.
Jeez. That's such a heartbreaking statistic. Like, obviously, these are just numbers on a page, but each one of these numbers represents a human life that was lost.
Yeah.
Whether they took it themselves or someone else took it from them with a gun.
I mean, you think about this because, I mean, prior to these stats, you think about, war, you think about, I'm sure most of our violence is done through war and stuff. No. Most of our violence through guns is
more than 10 times the war casualties.
Yeah.
Was homicide.
All right, so here's some deeper stuff, and this is why I really want to talk about this subject. Firearms are the leading cause of death for American children and teens. This is a 2019 stat. More than 1,800 children and teens die by gun homicide every year. For children under the age of 13, these gun homicides most frequently occur in the home and are often connected to domestic or family violence. In other words, it's not just an accident. Black children and teens are 14 times more likely than white children and teens of the same age to die by gun homicide. 2019 deaths for children and teens. Here's like the numbers. Like, this is how deaths are. For poisoning, it's 1,064. Suffocation, 1,508. Cancer, 1,649. Motor vehicle, 3,233. And firearms, 3,378.
So guns kill more children and teens than car crashes.
Yeah.
And that's motor vehicles, so planes, trains, boats, all of that included too.
Yeah. So
this is going to be a hard one for me. That's being honest. This is going to be a hard one.
Chris, take this next one, and we'll kind of wrap up some thoughts about this.
Yeah. So going along those same lines, women in the U.S. are 21 times more likely to be killed with a gun than women in other high-income countries. Again, this is like comparing first world countries. 21 times more likely.
Yeah.
In an average month, 53 American women are shot to death by an intimate partner, and many more are shot and wounded. Nearly 1 million women alive today have been shot or shot at by an intimate partner. Approximately 4.5 million American women alive today have been threatened with a gun by an intimate partner. Access to a gun in a domestic violence situation makes it 5 times more likely that a woman will be killed. And this is a hard one for me because I've taken counseling classes. I've sat through some sessions. And one of the things that I've heard people tell abused women is, oh, get a gun. Mm-hmm. But that literally makes it 5 times more likely that that gun that she bought for her own protection will be used against her.
Right.
In that abusive situation.
Yeah. So, guys, obviously, all these stats have so many variables. But here's what is common throughout this whole thing, is that in America, there are more deaths by firearms no matter what. Now, obviously, you can dissect this and go, well, maybe there's not enough training, or, well, maybe there's not this or that. Sure, whatever. But here's the bottom line truth. There are, what was that number? 120 guns per 100 people?
Yeah, about that.
This is an obvious correlation that because there are more guns, there is more gun violence.
Yeah.
There are more accidents. There is more...
and again, this is per capita, not just because there are more guns, there's more violence. It's per capita.
Yeah.
There's more guns, so per capita, there's more violence.
So take that as you will. I wanted to, and again, Chris and I will have our own opinions about this as far as to the why. But even at the bottom base level of this, the why doesn't matter. I mean, it does, but here's what it is no matter what the variable is. This is where it's at.
Right.
Let me share that one more time about the kids, guys. 1,800 children and teens die by gun homicide every year. The next closest thing that kids die from is motor vehicle. And that's, most of the time, that's accidental. There's very little thing you can do to prevent that.
Yeah. Okay. So, again, this is something that we're going to have different views on. We're going to argue against. We're going to argue for. It's not a black and white simple issue. So we're not giving you these statistics to be like, all right, well, this is why we shouldn't have guns.
Right. Yeah.
It is literally what it is. These are just the numbers, guys.
Yeah.
Man. Sorry. It's hard to take all of that in like all at once. Like you hear these little statistics just as little news clips, but like reading all of that out one right after the other, it's like, man.
Well, I think the harder things to think about this too is just that we're looking at these other modern nations, and they're not even close.
Yeah, America claims to be like the number one for everything. Like we're the leader of the free world in everything we do, but this is not one of those times you want to be number one.
And I think we've put ourselves in such a bubble. We don't observe the rest of the world when it comes to a lot of things, but it's even this specifically. And usually the main, argument is like, well, it's because we're free and because, the Constitution and all these different things that they hold on to. And I'm like, sure.
Buzzwords,
yeah. But guys, these numbers don't lie. I'm not saying, again, we're not saying that because of this we should just take away all guns and it should be gone. Some countries have done that and it's worked, and some have and it hasn't. But
something needs to change.
So let's move on, and we're going to talk about some arguments. And so we're going to bring up some arguments that I did my best to aside to both viewpoints, for and against gun control, for and against gun laws, that kind of thing. And we're going to dissect it. And there's some things that I am passionate about that I'm just going to be honest with you guys about, things that I've heard growing up all my life that I'm just kind of done with. Mm-hmm. And there's some things that I still go, well, fundamentally, this does concern me. So let's just get into it. The first one that everyone pretty much always goes to is, it's the Constitution.
My rights.
Second Amendment. That is, Chris and I, we work for home security and stuff, and every once in a while we'll come by a house, and one of the guys was like, well, I got my security right here, and he'll point to his holster on his hip or whatever, and it's like, it's just a common thing. It's just something that, especially in Texas, but a lot of the southern states, it's a fundamental thing. We can't give it up because this is the Constitution. And a lot of people will say something like, you can't change the Constitution.
Which you absolutely can. It was changed when it was first published. That's the Bill of Rights is literally the first 10 amendments,
and that's the thing.
To the Constitution.
Amendments means change. It means to change. So literally,
if you can't change a Constitution, I, as a black man, would not be able to hold land or vote. My wife would not be able to vote.
Yeah,
like it's
So at that fundamental level of, okay, it's in the Constitution, so therefore it can't change, as if it's the word of God. No, that's bullcrap. We have changed the Constitution many times. In fact, there was one time where we made alcohol illegal, and then 15 years later, we made it legal again.
In the Constitution.
In the Constitution.
Yeah. I read somewhere that the Founding Fathers intended for us to change the Constitution at most every 19 years.
Yeah.
Or
yeah.
At least
something
every 19
along those
years.
lines, yeah.
Just so that like every generation that's born and grows has a way to be involved in their own civic government.
Now, I'm gonna read something from a guy I found. His name is Gerard Leconte. I don't know how to pronounce it, but I think what he said kind of really resonates with me a lot. And he says this: the Constitution was a revolutionary document. Setting forth to establish a self-governed nation at this scale was a radical move. The Bill of Rights went even further and made it illegal for the government to establish a national religion, to censor citizens, to censor citizens, to occupy citizens, and more. But it also had a ton of blind spots like slavery, suffrage, and a whole host of basic logistical problems. And the framers knew that. They debated it extensively before and after it was signed. Efforts to fix it happened as soon as it was ratified, hence the Bill of Rights. It was supposed to grow and evolve with the country, and that's where we've gone wrong. We've abdicted our responsibility to keep it fit and healthy. Literally, the Bill of Rights was a response to the Founding Fathers not agreeing on everything in the Constitution. Mm-hmm. To say that the Founding Fathers were all in the same line of thought, that they all agreed on everything is...
You clearly never watched Hamilton.
These guys had radically different ideas, and for our nation to be even created was a miracle within itself, however you want to look at it. And so, if you're going to use the Constitution as a defense to your guns, know this, is that any amendment can be changed, or anything in the Constitution can't be changed. It can be amended. That's the whole point. It's that. So our government, it was created so that way we're not stuck in any way forever. It's meant to be open to change. And so whenever I hear people going off on the Constitution or the Second Amendment, I'm like, look, I'm not saying that you're wrong in the fact that you think that guns should be a fundamental right, but just hinging it on the Declaration, or the Constitution as it being the reason why, to me, that's flawed.
Oh, absolutely.
To me, that's flawed. I'm not saying the fundamental right to have guns is wrong. I'm saying to hinge it on the Constitution is wrong.
Even the Second Amendment itself isn't just about guns, though, right? Like, I'm pretty sure it was a well-regulated militia.
Yeah.
Not just anybody can go out and buy any type of gun they want. It was like, we have the right to a well-regulated militia, which includes training and registering and knowing who's part of what, knowing your plans, all that stuff. It's not just about the right to own and bear arms.
Yep. Chris, you want to go to this next argument?
Yeah, we'll go ahead and skip into this next one. Gun violence is higher in highly populated left cities, in quotations. Technically, yes. But highly populated cities tend to be left because the people are all from different areas, different walks of life. They're experiencing different things. They're talking to different people. They tend to lean left more socially.
All cities.
Like, the bigger the city, the more left it is. 100%. That's true across the board.
Yeah.
That's why, like, California, New York are, like, the big locations for the left-leaning people. They're also the most heavily populated areas in the country. A lot of people think that since gun violence is higher in the highly populated left cities, that's the problem. It's the gun control. It's the left. But most of those left cities do have gun laws in place. Yeah. So people are going to other cities and other states where the gun laws are more lax, getting guns, and then going back to their cities and doing whatever it is they're doing with them. Yeah.
I mean, that's the whole argument. Is like, oh, well, see, it doesn't work. You know, gun control doesn't work. Just look at all these big cities. Look at all the violence.
Chicago often comes up.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
There was a thing here in our research we found. In 2010, gun sales, that's actually the year we graduated, weird. Gun sales in Chicago were completely banned. You're not allowed to buy a gun in Chicago.
Yeah.
There were 432 murders in 2010, 500 in 2012. The FBI named Chicago the nation's murder capital of America. If a criminal is going to break a law, they're going to find a way. That's what a lot of people say.
Yep.
But 2/3 of the guns that were recovered there were sold in other states.
They don't say that, do they?
No, they definitely don't tell you that. Like 2/3 of the guns used in crimes in Chicago, and I think that's like a nationwide statistic as well, are sold in states like Texas where you can literally just walk into Walmart and buy a gun.
Yeah.
I will never forget when I first moved to Florida to work at Disney World. I like to just kind of figure out my environment when I get to a new place.
Right.
So I've checked out all the local shops, the restaurants, all that stuff. I went into Walmart, and I was walking around for a good minute. And, you know, my thing about zombies, I always want to be prepared for zombie apocalypse. Just in case something pops off, I want to be ready.
Never know.
So I asked the lady, hey, where's your gun section inside Walmart? And she was just so confused. This is Orlando. So big city full of millions of people.
Yeah.
She was like, gun set. This is Walmart.
This is a Walmart.
Where are you from that you have guns in your Is it Texas? I was like, yeah, I'm from Texas. She's like, okay, that makes sense. No, we don't do that here. We don't do that here.
Yeah.
Which, you know, back then I was upset about it, but I was just trying to protect myself from zombies.
Right. Looking
at it statistically now, it's probably a really good thing they don't have guns in their Walmarts in Orlando. 2/3 of those guns from different states.
See, you don't hear that very often, do you? There's currently no federal anti-trafficking law allowing criminals to exploit weaknesses in the system and flood communities with illegal guns. Guys, and even if you think about it this way, if, like, let's say, for example, tomorrow the government banned all guns, there's still millions and millions of guns out there. So crime wouldn't just decrease magically over a year. It wouldn't, because the guns are still there. So that stat, like saying in 2012, oh, it went up. Yeah, because one, there's already guns still there. Two, people are going to the state right across, you know, just a few hours away and getting guns there and bringing it back.
Yeah. And the guns that are in circulation are staying there while they're making new guns.
Right. Now, here's the other argument that's in caveat to this, is most people go, see, if the U.S. bans weapons, we're just going to get it from other countries. The criminals are going to bring it over from Mexico, no one says Canada, but they're going to bring it from the Americas, you know, from South America.
Canada's too nice.
Hey, Chris, share the stat, please.
As a Central American myself, I have family in Honduras. I've been racially profiled because of that fact. I've literally been straight up asked, oh, is your family here legally? You're one of the good ones, right? It's my favorite thing to hear. As a Central American, let me let you guys know that 70% of the guns seized in Mexico originated here in the U.S. So when President Trump decided to say that Mexicans are bringing guns and they're bringing crime and they're not sending their best, it's literally the opposite.
They're just bringing their own guns. They're bringing the U.S. guns back.
They weren't. They were caught bringing themselves here.
Yeah.
But we are bringing guns there. Like, the problems that they have with gun violence would not be a thing. Like, 70% of them wiped out completely if the U.S. didn't send guns to Mexico. And obviously, it's not like the U.S. government is sending guns there 100% of the time. I believe they probably are, but, you know, it is what it is. The guns that are in Mexico originated from the U.S., meaning that people came here, took guns, went back.
Yeah.
Or people are sending guns from here to them there to be used in crimes and all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
And that's only the guns that they actually seized and recovered.
And guys, this is a U.S. government accountability office that has come up with the stat. It's like, it's a U.S. government. So
this is America.
This
isn't like Mexico, like, oh, most of our guns came from you guys. No, this is America. Like, yeah, that's probably right.
Yeah.
Our stuff is down there.
So to me, in my brain, is if we're going to use the argument that, you know, it doesn't work in these certain areas, it's because we're in a country where we allow so many guns to be able to transfer and move to other states and cities and stuff without any regulation at all.
Zero repercussions.
No, I'm not saying that's necessarily right or wrong, but if you're going to use the defense of, oh, well, it doesn't work in these cities or it doesn't work in this area, it's because it's everywhere else.
Yeah.
That's it. I mean, it's really what it comes down to. That's such a flawed argument in my head to go, oh, well, it doesn't work because of this whatever metropolitan area. All right, let me go to the next one. All right, so this next one, I'll actually probably agree with and to an extent.
Truthfully, I'm on this one too. I agree with this one as well.
So the argument, it goes like this: Big Brother will turn on you when guns are taken away. You know what? I don't doubt it.
It's possible.
It's definitely possible.
It's probable. Historically speaking, it is probable.
Yeah. So this is probably my big advocation to having weapons in the first place, because I do believe there should be a fundamental right, so to speak, to be able to possess weapons to defend yourself with, you and your family.
Absolutely.
To me personally, I don't see a flaw in that basic fundamental thing. But here's the way we got to think about this. There are other developed nations out there that have banned weapons and that have gone and not gone full super Stalin mode. There are countries out there that have done this and it's not turned the worst for them.
Australia being the first one that comes to my mind, yeah.
Yeah, and we'll actually talk about some of these other nations in a second. But let's and even to an extent, even if the government were going to take all guns away, I don't think that's going to be the wisest decision for the U.S. government to do, because it will result in a civil war. It will.
It depends on the motive, though, because if their whole motive behind that is population control, then 100%. You got to think, the guns that we have, everybody's like, well, I need my AR to protect myself from the government. Okay, let's just say the government decides to turn on you one day. You have your AR-15. They don't sell fully automatic AR-15, so you would have to modify it yourself or find somebody sketchily selling them.
Yeah.
Outside of that, though, like, for most people, that is the most you have to defend yourself.
Yeah.
The U.S. has drones.
I was about to say, dude, they have artillery. They have
artillery. They have much better weapons than you see even being used.
Right.
They have tanks.
Yeah.
You know what your AR is going to do against a tank? Nothing.
Yeah.
The government has much better weapons than civilians have.
Yeah.
So you're not going to stand much of a chance in a fight. If they really wanted to, they could do it whether you have your gun or not.
Yep. Yeah.
That's what it is.
Okay, so this is where things get interesting, because this is where we kind of talk about internationally what other nations do. So here's the argument: is there's still murder in countries where handguns are banned or any other kind of guns. So it's true. Some countries have banned firearms, and for some it has worked, and for some it's sketchy, to say the least. But first off, let's realize, number one, the U.S. is vastly different than a lot of these other nations. For one, we already have hundreds of millions of guns. But number two, we're huge. We're a huge, not just with population, but within general size. And so if weapons were to disappear or to be banned tomorrow, like I said before, they're still going to be around no matter what. And so
it'd be way too hard to police, for sure.
Right. And so and there's other variables to think about, because obviously there are things like drug trafficking, weapons in the country, things that do play an impact onto the violence in the U.S. But let's talk about some countries, and some of these are a little bit more extreme than others. Chris, you take this first one, man.
Okay, so this one, we'll start off with the UK. The article that I found in this argument says the United Kingdom banned handguns in 1997 after man shot 16 elementary students and then shot himself. So looking at the UK's homicide rate before, during, and after the ban, in 1996, the murder rate was 1.12 per 100,000 people. In 1997, it rose to 1.24. In 1998, the rate rose to 1.43, and in 2002, it peaked at 2.1 homicides per 100,000. So obviously, just because you ban guns doesn't mean people won't find other ways to massacre human beings.
But here's what they don't show you in that stat, is that from 1996 onward, they went from having a 0.42 gun deaths per 100,000 people to a 0.17 in 2016.
So it's not the gun deaths that was raising; it was deaths in general, homicides in general.
No, this was guns too, but their argument was like, oh, look, because I found this on a website that was a little bit more right leaning, and this was the argument of like, look, it didn't do anything. They banned the handguns, and 3 years went down the road, and it got worse. Except they stopped there. They stopped there. And
they don't look into the reasoning behind it or the method of the death. It was just death increased.
Yeah.
But the gun death dropped.
Yeah. And it has ever since. Ever since that peak year in 2002, it's dropped.
Yeah.
So,
well, that'll do it.
That'll do it. All right, so here's another one. Now, this one is incredibly strict, but I'm actually not against what these guys do, and this is the country of Japan. They have had the fewest gun deaths per year in the world. They have some of the strictest gun laws in the world and experiences 100 or fewer gun deaths per year in a population of over 127 million and a gun death rate of 0.06 deaths per 100,000 people. So for Japanese citizens, for Japanese citizens to purchase a gun, they must attend an all-day class, pass a written exam, and complete a shooting range test, scoring at least 95% accuracy. Now, I know that seems a little harsh, but on the other hand, if we're in a situation where we're in a room and someone comes in, they're shooting up the place, even if they're a good guy, they can be just as dangerous as a bad guy if their aim is horrible.
Yeah.
I mean,
ricochets happen, just misfires. People can get hit by stray bullets. Like it's a scary situation. I don't want somebody that doesn't know what they're doing with a gun.
Now, here's where it gets more interesting. Candidates will also receive a mental health evaluation performed at a hospital and will have a comprehensive background check done by the government. Only shotguns and rifles can be purchased. The class and exam must be retaken every 3 years. I am behind that 1,000%. The mental stuff.
No, that 100%. I think the only thing that I would have an issue with, and that's probably just because I am a Texan, is I like handguns.
Oh, yeah.
I think handguns should also be allowed. But
I agree.
The background check, the mental evaluation, that's all part of the common sense gun laws that a lot of people are trying to pass now.
Yeah.
I'm here for it.
Yeah.
Re-examining every 3 years, like if you can't maintain your ability to shoot, like if your hand is shaking now due to some kind of accident and every bullet fires somewhere else, I don't want you to continue using your gun just because you think you know what you're doing.
Right.
I think in Germany, actually, they do, like, you have to be part of a shooting club, and you have to prove that you need this for your club.
Right.
So you have to have, like, 18 different occurrences where you go to the range and shoot as part of this club to even prove that you need to own a gun. I think that's a really good idea. Like, obviously, if you're going to the range all the time or if you're a hunter, sure. If you're getting it for family protection, you just have to continue to prove that you know what you're doing constantly. Yeah. And your hand isn't slipping up.
Now, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, that was pretty much it. I just think there's a lot more that can be done with people that currently own guns.
Yeah. Now, here's another reason why I thought this stat or this country was interesting, and because of all the times that I've been in, like, in an environment where I've had an instructor, most of the time the guys are, like, super serious about, like, how you handle the gun.
Gun safety, make sure that the safety's on, you practice trigger control, you're not pointing the gun at anybody, even if you're setting it down.
Right.
Yeah.
And I'm for that. That makes
100%.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense.
That's the way it should be.
But then when it comes to just allowing you to purchase the gun, it seems like they just get relaxed.
Yeah, anybody can do whatever.
That doesn't make any sense to me. That logic doesn't follow to me. Is if it is that serious when you're instructing the class about how you should handle the gun, never point at anything you don't want to destroy, all that stuff.
It needs to be that serious all the time.
Yeah.
Every time.
That
gun comes out of a safe, it is 100% serious. And that's how I was raised.
Yeah.
Like, guns are not toys. They're not something that anybody should have. They're not something that anybody should play around with.
Right.
If you don't know what you're doing, if you're not properly trained, you don't handle the gun.
Yeah.
When my dad took me hunting, he made sure that I knew everything about my weapon before we went out there.
Yeah.
Before we even got to the hunting ground.
Yeah. And it's so funny because it's like if you're that kind of person, which that's fine. If you're that kind of person who is super strict about the gun safety, which as you should be, then wouldn't you want it to don't you want to not give yourself a bad name by allowing just anyone and everyone to have a gun?
Yeah.
I mean, to me, you're giving permission for dumb people to possess weapons.
Absolutely.
You're opening up the opportunity for people to do dumb things with guns. And so, to me, that's just one of those easily illogical things that I've discovered in the arguments of, like, well, it should be a fundamental right. I'm like, yeah, sure, maybe. But dumb people do dumb things. If we have the opportunity to prevent dumb things from happening, I think we should do it.
Agreed.
I mean... Okay, one more country, and I'll let you do this one since you mentioned it before.
Yeah, so Australia. Back in 96, Australia had a mass shooting that killed 35 and wounded like 23. Immediately after that, Australian lawmakers responded with legislation that, among other provisions, banned certain types of guns, such as automatic and semi-automatic rifles and shotguns. Australian government confiscated 650,000 of these guns through a mandatory buyback program in which it purchased firearms from gun owners. It established a registry of all guns owned in the country and required a permit for all new firearm purchases. Yep. So they didn't completely ban guns. They just were like, hey, we're going to buy back all of these guns and try to start from scratch.
Yeah.
If you want to buy a new one, you have to be registered. You have to have a license.
Yeah.
Makes sense to me. Australia's firearm homicide rate dropped by 42% in the 7 years after that law passed.
Incredible.
Like you were saying, it's not an immediate thing. Guns are still out there, but 42% in 7 years.
That's a big number.
That is a lot of people. Firearm suicide rate, which is probably one of the biggest things to me, fell by 57%, according to the review of evidence by Harvard researchers. Again, American researchers pulling these numbers. These are not just what the other countries are telling us.
Right.
This is American research.
Yep. So there was another incident, I think it was 2011, 2012, and someone wrote about like this. There was another mass shooting in Australia. It says, one other fact noted by Hemingway and I can not pronounce that name, Renoitis, in 2011, while 13 gun massacres, the killing of 4 more people at one time, occurred in Australia in the 18 years before the Australian gun control law, resulting in more than 100 deaths. In the following 14 years and up to the present, there were no gun massacres. Guys, this is a real thing. This is a real stat. This is real evidence that says that, look, yes, gun violence still is probably going to happen on small scale, but you're not going to have as many mass shootings as you were before.
A lot of the people that try to push this common sense gun law stuff in America point to countries like Australia for these reasons, because access to these guns, like the ease of access, is what causes all of this.
Yeah.
Like if you're having suicidal thoughts and you have a gun in your closet, you can go grab that gun, boom, that's it. If you have to go register with the state, go take a test, go take a written test, go take a psychological evaluation, which you probably would fail at that point, go shooting, and then have a waiting period to get the gun, maybe that'll save your life.
Yeah.
If, if the Sandy Hook shooter had to go through that waiting process, would those kids still be alive? Maybe. Probably, I think.
Yeah.
If Kyle Rittenhouse had to go through all of the stuff, would those protesters still be alive? Would he have been able to cross state lines with that gun that he illegally acquired? All kinds of different things you got to look at when it comes to this type of stuff, but the numbers don't lie.
Yeah.
The statistics, the facts don't lie. Ease of access creates problems.
Yeah. And I want to actually carry on something with what you just said in one of the other arguments in a second, because I think it's so good. But let's continue on. One of the other arguments is armed civilians help take out the bad guys. I agree. If we
sometimes
true. In case you didn't know, there's a shooting, one of the first modern mass shootings in the U.S. In the U.S. in 1966. There's the Austin mass shooting. Essentially, there's a dude in a bell tower sniping out people. And what happened was cops got there, but there were other civilians there as well who got out their guns and started at least suppressing him from shooting everyone else. And so it was a cop that ended up taking him out, but they helped out. And so theoretically, if people are well trained, they have the right certification, and they know what they're doing, I'm not against that. I'm not against good guys playing a role and having weapons and defending people.
There was actually recently the whole situation was messed up, but there were a couple of guys that I think were ISIS affiliated that were trying to shoot a really sketchy Dallas group of people that had gotten together, and they were doing some stuff they shouldn't have been doing, but it wasn't illegal. It's just rude.
Right.
So the ISIS people got offended, and they were going to go shoot up this Dallas area, and somebody with a gun saw what was about to happen and stopped it.
Yeah.
In those instances, great. An armed civilian saved the day, and I'm glad that it happened that way.
Yeah.
It's just, for me, like I said, I'm a little more left-leaning than Tim. There are ways to prevent that from happening in the first place.
True.
Like, if you have a gun and you can use it, great. If you're protecting yourself, fantastic. But wouldn't you rather prevent that whole situation from happening in the first place?
Well, even if there wasn't that thing, you got to look at how many times does that actually happen, though, of civilians saving the day? Like, that's good and fine and all, but does that outweigh how many homicides and things there are, I agree with you on that. I think we have to look at go, okay, yes, this is good that some people are good people out there who are defending everyone, but because of the access to guns, the access and the how easy it is to possess weapons, there is so much more violence. Is it worth it? And that's a real question we have to ask ourselves.
Yeah.
Is it worth it being this easy to obtain a weapon?
It's a heavy topic, man.
Next argument, taking guns away from the good guys won't fix anything. Here, I wrote it out like this. I might actually agree with those people if they were willing to do something to prevent the bad guys from getting those guns.
Mm-hmm.
That's where I stand on this. I would agree with you if you're willing to take measures to stop the bad people from getting guns.
To me, these people, the people that we just talked about and the people we're going to talk about are all in that same vein. They don't want people to be safe. They want to be heroes.
Yeah.
They want something to pop off so that they can stop it.
Yeah.
They want to be given the credit for, oh, I'm the guy that took out the would-be school shooter.
Yeah.
I'm the guy that saved everyone at the mall.
If the teachers had the guns, if whatever it is.
Yeah, like they don't want safety. They want almost tragedy.
Right. Yep. And look, the bottom line is there's too many loopholes. There's too many ways to get weapons that are just so obnoxiously stupid.
There's a gun show going on right now in our expo center.
Guys, I bought one of my guns at a gun show, and it didn't take anything to get it. That, to me, is so... Again, it goes back to the same line of thought of, like, well, if you take guns seriously, shouldn't you take the sale of guns seriously?
Absolutely.
Gun shows make no sense to me anymore.
No.
They don't.
Like I said, we both grew up pretty similarly, I think, right-leaning families with right-leaning education.
Yeah.
And the things that I look back on my life from, I'm like, there's no way I should have been able to do that.
Right.
Like, at 18, I went out and bought my first gun. It was like 3 days after my 18th birthday. I bought what was it, 380, I think, just a little handgun. And I paid cash. I bought a handgun, and I just had it.
And you could have done anything
I
with
could
that
have done
gun.
anything.
Yeah.
I could have bought ammo from a different store.
Yeah.
Like 5 minutes before that, bought my gun, and then literally walked into a gas station and robbed it.
Yeah.
And nobody would have said anything about it.
Yeah. And to be fair here, or not fair, I guess another way of looking at this is, if you're going to be one of those people that says it's a fundamental right, and I'm kind of technically on that side of it, you still have to acknowledge that there are lines.
Oh, yeah.
Like we said earlier, if the government decided to take everything and they would declare war on us, they would win because they have tanks. So we obviously draw a line. Civilians can't own tanks. Civilians can't own bombs. They can't own rocket launchers. They can't do these things. So if you're going to be that kind of person that says that, then you need to be all the way and say, you know what, every American should be able to have a rocket launcher and a tank.
And I know some people that are like that.
There are. But guys, if you're listening to this, you're probably one of the people that goes, okay, it's probably not wise for everyone to own a tank. And so if you have that train of thought, then it should at least open the door to go, okay, maybe not everyone should have access to an AR-15.
Yeah.
To me, it's as simple as that.
Yeah.
I'm not disagreeing with fundamental rights or whatever, something like that, but...
It just seems to me like when it comes to the amendments, like obviously the first one is freedom of religion, assembly, press, petition, and... speech. Thank you. Yeah. Speech. You can't just go out there, though, and say F the president and then punch him in the throat.
Right.
They're going to arrest you.
Yeah.
If you make threats against a school, they're going to arrest you.
Yeah.
There are things you can't do, even though it is a fundamental right.
Right.
It's the first right.
Yeah.
But when it comes to, like, guns, people want that to be unrestricted, and that's just insane to me.
Yep. So one last thing, and this isn't actually an argument, but it's something I heard the other day that makes a lot of sense to me, is my favorite argument from the party of law and order is that laws don't work.
Ooh, come on. Come on.
If we believe that laws should be a thing, that laws work, then we should be behind things that prevent people from dying.
If you support the police,
oh,
that means you believe in law and order.
Yeah.
So you should also believe that gun laws would work.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're saying that other laws don't work.
Now, I would get behind you and saying, well, again, it goes back to the argument. Well, what about these left cities? What about these certain states? Sure. But if we want it to work well, we need to make it universal across our country.
We've got to start somewhere at least.
Look, and that can lead up to a whole other conversation. Like, all right, well, Texas is just going to be its own country or whatever. Like, sure, whatever, dude, whatever. But until then, these stats don't lie. We are so far, our homicide rates are so far beyond anyone else in our modern countries that you can't look at this stuff and go, oh no, we're just different, or it wouldn't work. No, it can work. We can do something.
Yeah.
Okay, so I want to get to one of me personally, and Chris, you can back me up on this or whatnot, but I want to talk to a second for all you guys who might be Christians out there, because I am. Chris is, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
More or less.
More or less.
Deconstructing Christian, but Christian nonetheless.
Yeah.
I still believe in God and Jesus. I just don't know about the ways that I was taught as a kid.
And I would agree with you on that. So I want to share two things with you guys. One was a story I remember hearing growing up, and you might remember this too, Chris. There's a story about Paul on his way to Rome, and if I'm not mistaken, he was actually a prisoner. But they were on their way. They're on a ship, and a storm comes by.
Oh yeah.
And the ship gets
wrecked.
shipwrecked.
Malta.
Yeah. And they find themselves on the beach of Malta, and so rain is still happening. It's still crazy. They're recovering, and so Paul goes up and he decides to go collect some firewood to keep the guys warm and everything.
Sure.
And he goes around, and as he's picking up this firewood, a snake pops up and bites him on the hand. Now, it's a venomous snake, and so it should kill him. It bit on him. In fact, I think he had to rip the snake off, if I remember correctly, or do something like that. So his friends see it, and they go, oh, man, Paul's going to die. And then time goes on. Paul just has faith that nothing is going to happen, and sure enough, nothing happens. It's a great story about faith. It's a great story about trusting God. It's a great story. But I remember growing up hearing this story, and my parents or other people, pastors, would say something along the lines of, now, this is not an excuse for you to go out there and do something stupid or to be sinful or to one of those things.
Yeah.
It's not an excuse for you to just do whatever you want and tempt God. I say that because I feel like we, especially as Americans and even as Christians, I think we're tempting God.
Yeah.
I feel like when it comes to gun safety in our country, we like to hold on to this, quote, fundamental, quote, right to possess weapons. And even if you believe that it's a God-given right, I believe a lot of us are just playing God. We allow weapons to be so easily obtained that we go, we'll be safe. We'll be fine. We'll trust God. We'll have faith. And to me, that's like if Paul were to be looking for a snake and let it to bite him.
That's that thoughts and prayers mentality.
That was my next thing is, guys, look, the reason why so many both atheists or just people on the left or whatever are so mad at us saying that is not because it's religious. It's not because it's just a saying. It's because that's the only thing we're willing to do. That's the only thing that we're willing to do to possibly change it. And guys, hear me out. I am a Christian. I believe in Jesus. I believe in these things. But guys, it's not working. We have to we have to actually do something to prevent something from happening. Yeah. Thoughts and prayers, I do believe, are impactful and they do work. But
there's so much more we can be doing. So here's my thing. When it comes to thoughts and prayers, Christians, we set ourselves up as this shining city on a hill that everybody's supposed to look at as the example. Everybody's supposed to strive to be like.
Yeah.
But then when people are sitting in the darkness, we turn out our light. Or we keep it to ourselves.
Yeah.
Jesus, the Son of God, had the power to do whatever he wanted from wherever he wanted. But when somebody said, Lord, my daughter is dying, he went to that house. He could have just said, oh, my thoughts and prayers are with your daughter. Oof. He went to that man's house.
Yeah.
When the guys were dropping their friend through the roof, they were like, hey, our friend is crippled. He needs help. Jesus could have said, oh, yeah, thoughts and prayers to your friend, and then kept doing what he was doing.
Yeah.
But he took the time to bring that man down and pray with him and help him stand up.
Yeah,
Jesus took the hands of people and helped them stand up.
Yeah.
He rubbed the mud in that guy's eye and took him and said, go wash your face in this pool and then come back to me.
Yeah.
He could have said thoughts and prayers at any point in time, and he had that power. Sometimes he did do that.
Yeah.
He just said, "Oh, go in faith and everything's fine."
Well, but even then, those people came to him. They did something.
They had to come to him,
Yeah.
and he gave them his power.
Yeah.
He did what they needed him to do. He wasn't just saying thoughts and prayers.
Right.
He actually put actions behind what he was saying.
Yeah.
And I think that's where Americana Christianity is falling short.
Yeah.
Because we say thoughts and prayers every time there's a school shooting, but what is that doing?
Right.
We're not looking at possible legislation. We're not trying to do anything better for these kids. We're not doing gun safety classes. We're not doing anything.
Yeah. Very, very little to actually do any impactful change.
We hide behind thoughts and prayers, and that's why the left has a problem with the right as far as Christianity versus non-Christianity goes.
And I get it. I mean,
I understand. That's one of the biggest triggers for my deconstruction. Like, seeing the church I was raised in not be the church I was raised to believe it was.
Yeah. And it's so funny. So many men conferences I've been to where they always talk about, we got to take action. We got to do something. And it's like, but when it comes to this, we're silent.
Do something.
Yeah.
So do something about it. Like, there's...
And look, I'm not saying the solution is to ban guns. I'm not saying the solution is to do any of those things that we've read that other countries do, but we're doing nothing.
I think the solution is to at least start an open, honest conversation where everyone is open-minded, not just clinging to what their talking points have been for the past 40 years.
Yeah. And to use the excuse that this is the way things have always been is such a bullcrap thing.
Because, again, only 40 years ago.
Yeah.
1986.
So I'll share one more thing for you. And this is actually, if you were to go to the other extreme of this and go, well, maybe we shouldn't have weapons at all. This is found in Isaiah chapter 2. It says this. This is a message. This is the message which God gave to Isaiah, son of Amos, about Judah and Jerusalem. In days to come, the mountain where the temple stands will be the highest one of all, towering above all the hills. Many nations will come streaming to it, and their people will say, let us go up the hill of the Lord, to the temple of Israel's God. He will teach us what he wants to do. We will walk in the paths he has chosen. For the Lord's teachings come from Jerusalem. From Zion he speaks to his people. He will settle disputes among great nations. They will hammer their swords into plows and their spears into pruning knives. Nations will never again go to war, never prepare for battle again. Now, descendants of Jacob, let us walk in the light which the Lord gives us. This verse, at least for the longest time, has been speaking to me. Because fundamentally, a lot of times I think, again, we kind of go, oh, this is a God-given right to be able to possess weapons. But is that truly God's intention? Is that truly what he wants for all of us, is to be able to, I mean, it's pretty clear here. It's like, not only will they, turn their weapons into tools, but they will never go to war and they will never prepare for battle again. Essentially making weapons, making defenses, all these different things. Now, you could argue, and we can dissect this, and we can have a whole conversation about this passage of scripture. But
to me, this is, and I believe I referenced this in our last episode, translating the book of Isaiah directly is kind of hard because it's a prophecy book.
Yeah.
But this is about, if I'm not mistaken, the day of the Lord, which is like,
what is to come.
Some people say it's like the rapture. Some people say it's just when God comes back and establishes kingdom on earth.
Right.
Whatever have you. It is a day that anybody that believes in God is looking forward to. It's the day everything becomes perfect.
Right.
The best outcome possible. All of the weapons will be hammered into pruning knives and shears and plows, tools to help, to grow, to better the global community. They'll never go to war again. Ideally, like, it is God's ideal that we will never go to war again.
Yeah.
That we won't need weapons. That's it.
Yeah.
And no matter how you translate it, that's it. And
again, that does not mean, because obviously we're at a place to where, I don't think, and I could be wrong, but just my own personal Tim thinking out loud here, we're not at a place to where we could probably give up all of our weapons and everything would be fine and hunky-dory. But I do believe that this should result in action from us. And it should at least, and I guess we'll go into final thoughts here, is ultimately the reason why there's been very little progress is because we're at a gridlock. We believe that one side or the other is out to get us, that they're going to turn on us when things are made or changes that happen, and this certain political party is doing something. But here's a quote I often heard in church, and it was usually in the context of talking about sinners. But it's a quote from Albert Einstein. He says, "Insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results."
Mm-hmm.
Friends, we're a little insane right now.
It's an insane country we live in.
We're doing the same exact thing and expecting different results. And like I said, I don't know exactly what the perfect answer is to this. I'm not a politician. I don't know all the logistics. But we got to be doing something.
It's a starting place
we
to have this conversation.
What we're doing is not working. I'm not against thoughts and prayers, and most other people are not. The only reason they're tired of hearing that is because that's all it is. That's all they're doing. And so we need to, especially because we do hold the majority still, we got to take these stats seriously. We got to look at how many of our kids are dying because of weapons, both from homicides and from just accidents. We got to look at suicides. Guys, there's so many people dying from suicides. We got to take a stance to go, you know what? Maybe my quote unquote right to own a gun is not as important as the life of my kid.
100%.
And again, I'm not up to the point yet, and I don't know, this could change tomorrow, but, I'm not saying that we have to give up our weapons. I'm not saying that we should just, go full on whatever, but we're doing nothing, and it's not helping.
There needs to be training. There needs to be new legislation. There needs to be accountability.
Yeah.
How we get there deserves its own conversation, but it needs to be done.
And I'll say this last thing, and I wrote this down because I wanted to say it the way I had it in my head when I was doing my notes. But at this current moment in time, I do believe it's okay for citizens of a country to possess weapons to defend themselves. I said that earlier. However, we need to at least do the bare minimum and make it hard for us to access them. These are weapons. These are meant to destroy people. That's the thing that they tell you every time you handle a gun in gun training.
Yep.
Don't aim this at anything you're not willing to destroy. We need to make sure that the good guys are the only ones that get it. And if that means some severe legislation, if that means some severe training and whatever to get it, I'm on board with that. I'm to the point. If that means I need to go back and go through a training to own the weapons that I already have, I'm on board with that.
Me too.
If it means as a whole, as a country, we can begin to go towards a better way of owning weapons, then I'm on board with that. And in fairness, I also believe that we need to put more money and resources into mental health.
1,000%.
I do believe that is a huge part of this. But here's the thing, is just because you have two ingredients doesn't mean that both of them are good or bad. It means that because they're together, both bad mental health and weapons availability, it's causing a storm. Literally, it's causing all this stuff to happen.
Yeah.
But just fixing one is not going to fix the whole problem.
No.
We have so many guns in this country, and that's just a simple thing. Is the more weapons you have in a place, more likely something bad's going to happen. It's as simple as that. It really is as simple as that.
It's a law of probability.
It is.
Yeah.
And so I do think that we need to begin to, one, stop stigmatizing mental health, take it seriously.
Yes.
Not just thoughts and prayers. Again, that's important. If you believe in that stuff, cool, awesome. But we need to take it seriously. We need to actually steer people towards getting help, and then also put our money where our mouth is actually making access to counselors and to mental health facilities cheaper and more affordable.
Yes.
If we truly care, guys, and this is me coming from the person who's been conservative most of his life. If we truly want to see less death and we truly believe it's just a mental health thing, then let's put our money where our mouth is.
Yeah.
Let's invest in actually making mental health a serious thing that we actually care about. We actually have to do something about it, though.
Yeah. Mental health legislation is probably going to be the biggest relief on gun ownership that doesn't require gun legislation.
Yeah.
If we can fix that problem, I think that would take a lot of the pressure off of gun ownership.
Yeah, yeah.
But people see attacking that as an attack on their financial rights or whatever you want to call it. Like, people don't want to pay an extra 3% in taxes so that everybody gets health care. They're never sick, so why should they have to pay for someone else, you know? But that's literally how insurance works anyway. That's a whole other debate for another day. Mental health, though, deserves its own conversation.
Yeah.
Gun rights deserve their own conversations. Healthcare, it's in general, deserves its own conversation. But every one of those is tied in so tightly with each other in our country that it's hard to address one without the other, and radical change scares people.
Yeah.
But that's what we need. It's clear by the numbers here. We need radical change. Something's got to give.
And I'll even say this. As a person who still on paper leans to the right, if we don't do something, like I'm talking to my conservative friends out there, if we don't do something, the left is going to get tired of that. And like right now, there's a majority, and they're going to do radical things that you may not want to happen. So even just from that logistical, viewpoint of things, we need to at least meet halfway on some of these issues. I mean, otherwise things really bad could happen. And I'm not saying I disagree or agree with those things, but my point is that the more, hardcore and, stand your ground you are about certain things, no pun intended there, then more likely other people are just going to get mad at you and just do whatever they want anyways.
Yeah, that's 100% true.
I mean, and from listening and the past few years, I've really been trying to listen to all viewpoints. And from what I can tell from most people on the left, they're just tired of the lack of any change on the right. That's usually what it comes down to. It's just they're so conservative in literal sense that they don't want to change anything.
Yeah.
And that's such a bullcrap thing to do because if you're not growing, if you're not changing, you're dying.
Yeah.
You can't stay conservative on everything. You just can't.
Get busy living or get busy dying.
Yeah.
That's it.
That's all I got, man. I'm done.
Okay. I think that was a heavy enough topic for the day.
Are we done with this? Are we good? Are you good?
I was just going to say, I can always talk more on this topic. I've been called a radical leftist. I would definitely say my ideas are more centrist than left, but the American window is so skewed to the right anyway that anything in the middle looks like a radical left idea.
Yeah.
It
What else can you say, right?
There's not much else you can say, I guess. I've said everything I need to. Anything that anybody else wants to infer, they can reach out to me personally, and we can have this conversation.
Maybe one final thing, and this is coming from someone who, again, on paper, I still come from the right a little bit. Don't be afraid to learn new things. Don't be afraid to challenge what you've always known or how you've always done things. It's not bad to grow. It's not bad to change. It's not wrong to change your mind about things.
Right.
It's okay that you might have a different viewpoint than you did 5 years ago. It's okay that some things are uncomfortable. That's change. That's growth. That's how we become better, is we face situations that are uncomfortable and hard to talk about, and we have a conversation about it. It doesn't mean that we have to, give way and just completely 100% just change our minds about something, but at the bare minimum, if we want to have a better society, we need to let our guard down a little bit more.
There needs to be room for compromise. That's what society and community is all about. It's compromise.
Yeah. All right, guys. I think it's enough about that. Let's move on. Let's get back into some good-hearted things. So we're gonna take a quick break, and then after this, we'll have some fun again.
Sounds good to me.
Let's do it. All right, guys, we are back.
Whoop, whoop.
All right, let's get into some positive things, guys. Before we move on, don't forget to subscribe, rate, follow us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you're listening to this, because we love to hear from you guys, which leads us into our next segment, which is Ask Chris and Tim. We want to hear what you have to say, so make sure you let us know what you want to hear or what you want to hear us say.
What we want to talk to you about us, hearing you from us to you.
All right, first question. Chris, take it away, my brother.
Aaron. Love this guy, too.
Man, good guy.
Aaron Flynn. Aaron asked, which bear could you take in a fist fight? I feel like people just want us to fight animals.
I should have taken notes. I should have prepared a list because I forgot to. I was going to actually make a list of all the bears out there to see where we could start off with, because obviously koala bears, no big deal.
I could take a koala for sure.
Yeah.
Round one.
Yeah. I could probably take a panda. I mean, they're big, but if you get a chokehold on them, they're pretty lazy. I don't think they can reach behind you. I think you're good on that one.
Yeah. I think pandas are pretty peaceful animals. I think I could take a panda. I might be able to take a panda.
Now, granted, they're big, but
again, do I have a knife, or is this like a fist fight? Barehanded fist fight.
Aaron said fist fight.
Okay. In a fist fight, definitely a koala, probably a panda.
Sloth bear.
Is that a thing?
Yeah, it's a real animal.
Okay. How big are they?
That's a good question. Let me look it up real quick. They're like, I think the size of like a panda, I think.
Okay,
Let me see.
maybe. I
But
think I could take that. I think red pandas technically are bears. They're not actually pandas.
true.
So I could definitely take a red panda.
Yeah, this is a sloth bear.
Sloth bear?
Yeah, it's a real thing.
Oh, they look weird. Okay, we'll put a picture of this in the notes so
Yeah.
you can see a sloth bear. How big do they get?
Hold on. Wikipedia says, what does it say? Sorry, I'm not there
That's
yet.
fine.
Characteristics.
While you're looking that up, I think it's safe to say I could take any baby bear.
Oh yeah,
Like
yeah.
any cub I could take.
Oh, these things are pretty big though. The sloths, they can go up from 121 to 300 or 231 pounds. I mean, maybe.
I mean, I'm like 140. I think I could take a small one,
I think.
but a full-grown one might have me.
I think what we have to consider is that one, they're big and powerful, but two, their claws are sharp.
Yeah, they'll
And
shred.
those things will tear you down quick. And so, if you're going to fight a bear of any kind of size that matches your own, you got to play it smart. You got to get behind it.
So that's like they have a knife and I don't.
Yeah.
Knives.
Knives. Yeah.
Knives.
So I would probably cap it at like a maybe a panda. Like, because I think anything bigger, like even that sloth bear, even though it's a little bit smaller as far as bears are concerned, man, one swing at you with those things,
Yeah,
It could
you
do
might be right.
it could do some work on you, man.
I could definitely take a koala or a red panda. I think I'd have to cap it at panda.
I think so too.
At best.
Yeah,
Like
at best.
on my best day and on the panda's worst day.
Right.
Yeah, okay.
Good question, Aaron.
There
Thank
you go,
for
Aaron.
that.
Pandas. Up to and possibly not including pandas.
All right, one more question. This comes from Harley. She asked, do you think the chicken or the egg came first?
Okay, so I actually just watched a Neil deGrasse Tyson video on this.
Yeah, let me hear it.
The egg came first.
Okay, show your work.
So you can't have a chicken without an egg, obviously. You can't have an egg without a chicken, technically. But anytime there's been an extinction event or a species comes out of another species, like Homo sapiens from Neanderthal,
Yeah.
it's because there was a mutation or some kind of change in the embryo that the adult didn't go through. So the chicken came after the egg. The egg that hatched a chicken was laid by something that we would not consider a chicken initially.
Wow. Well, there you go.
So the egg came first.
Well, there you go. That was easy.
Boom.
Thank you, Harley, for that great question. And guys, again, if you want your questions answered on the pod, make sure you send it to us on social media or on our email, alwaysmorepod@gmail.com.
Also, if you have any suggestions for main topics, if this one
please.
was a little too heavy for you, you can always change what we talk about.
Yeah. Please
All
let
right.
us know.
So let's move on to our second to last thing we're going to do. Things I've learned from the internet.
Oh, this is a good one.
I would like to point out that Jack Black,
Yeah.
beloved Jack Black,
Beloved.
musician, actor, all-around good guy.
Yeah.
Beloved Jack Black was born to a woman named Judith Love Cohen.
Mm.
His mother was actually one of the scientists that helped create the abort guidance system, which rescued the Apollo 13 astronauts
Yeah.
on the day she went into labor. She went into labor
Yeah.
while working on this problem, took a printout of it with her to the hospital, and then she called her boss and said, "Hey, I just finished working on that problem and gave birth to my son, Jack Black." Now, I'm sure she didn't think that Jack Black was going to turn into who
Yeah.
he turned into,
Yeah.
but that woman did not quit.
No, she did not.
And that definitely had to like translate into him because that man does not stop.
No, he does not.
He is constantly hilarious, constantly creating, constantly a good dude.
Oh, man.
Even like unintentionally creating memes, like the
Oh, I know.
distracted boyfriend meme,
The dude is.
like where he walks by the guy and the guy's like, "Is that Jack Black?" Yeah. Yeah. And he comes from this genius of a woman that saved literal astronauts.
Yeah.
She is a scientist and a mother.
This woman. Man.
She's impressive.
She is.
Say what you want about anybody. You can't say nothing bad about her in my eyes. So thank you, Judith Love Cohen,
yes.
for the birth of your son.
We appreciate it. And for saving the people of Apollo 13.
Yeah, thank you for that, because that was a great movie, too.
Yeah. All right, so for my things I learned on the internet, our own stomach has to constantly secrete mucus to stop itself from being digested by our own stomach acid.
Nope. Don't like that.
Without that mucus, our stomach acid would eat through our stomach's lining.
I feel like that's an actual problem some people have.
I wouldn't disagree with you. I bet you there's like some kind of rare thing out there that where it's like, oh, it doesn't create that mucus, and you.
It may not even be that rare. That may be like the cause behind IBS and Crohn's and stuff like that. One of the causes, anyway.
Yeah.
Ugh. I don't like that thought at all. Like, these are the things you can't.
You just trust your body to do it.
Yeah, you can't think about because it's just going to drive crazy. Like, I read somewhere that digestion constantly causes you pain. Like, it is an excruciating amount of pain.
Yeah, yeah.
But our bodies are just used to it.
And just
like
ignores
the brain just ignores it. But if you like look at the nerve, the pain receptors in your stomach,
they're like constantly
on fire. Yeah. That's insane to me. Like, God, I wouldn't wish that on my worst enemy.
Oh, thank you.
Maybe my worst enemy, but no one else.
Thank you, science and medicine, for teaching us things that make us feel extremely uncomfortable.
Medical facts you did not want to know.
Guys, that's it. That's our stuff. Any final thoughts for you today, Chris?
I think we've said everything that
I agree,
needs to be said. I think we can just go ahead and start playing that music.
Okay, guys. Hey, we want to make sure that you stay connected with us. So make sure you follow us on social media. Make sure you, again, subscribe, like, comment, all those fun things. Let us know that you're out there. Send us your questions. Send us topics that you would like to hear us talk about.
Buy us a coffee.
Yes, guys, we have that online. We like to upgrade our equipment and, also just get a coffee. So,
my caffeine addiction.
Yeah. So, guys, I think that's what we all have for today. So, at that, we'll say goodbye.
Farewell.
Bye, everybody. Love you.
Thank you for listening to the Always More podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to subscribe, share, like, and rate on whatever your platform of preference is. You can follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Always More Pod and ask your question using hashtag AskChrisandTim. If you'd like to support the podcast and feed into Chris and Tim's caffeine addiction, you can do so at buymeacoffee.com/alwaysmorepod. For further information and to contact Chris or Tim, you can email them at alwaysmorepodcast@gmail.com.
We need to do this.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.